It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Rav Meir Posen. We're here in your beautiful home in Kiryat Sefer. And Rav, you are almost the world authority on Mikve.
I must tell you, we originally come, our name, Posen, is from the town in German Poland. You know, that border a country, the area at the west of Poland used to change hand between Poland and Germany, like Strasbourg, for instance, in France. It was German, or, you know, the borderline. So our family lived there in the town of Posen. In 1717, the year 5477, I think it was, something. What was it? It's about 300 years ago. Yeah. It was a pogrom. Yeah. In the middle of the summer, just a week before Tisha B'Av, and they did a lot of damage in the town of Posen against the Jewish community. 9 months later, in Nisan of the following year, yeah, this was 1717 in Nisan, right? They made another pogrom, and a person called Rabbi Naftali Herz from Posen, he managed to escape the pogrom with nothing else but the clothes on his body and his wife and children. And they fled, and they came to Frankfurt am Main, which was in those days the center of Torah Judaism. Well, in those days everything was Torah Judaism. The Reform had not got its hold yet, because the Reform started in later on, in 1700s. But in any case, it reached Frankfurt. We know about this because he said, if he ever comes again into a proper community and is established, he'll from his own money print an old sefer, right? And which was the case of Rabbeinu Yonah. And in the title page, he writes his whole story, how he survived with this thing. So we know back at least 150 years our ancestry, because his father and mother were Yaakov and Chana, that we know from them, and then from onwards we know all the generations. We've got the family tree on that, and they were always Rabbanim and Dayonim and all the leaders of the community. And the family was one of the few who survived, yeah, the emancipation. What it meant, before that, all the Jews had to live in a ghetto, right? Not like the Nazi ghetto, but the ghetto, they were. When Napoleon came, he abolished the ghettos, right, in the beginning of 1800s, right, which was a downfall of Jewry. He didn't mean it as that, but it was something emancipated, and till then, in the ghetto, somebody who didn't keep Shabbos, you know, he couldn't do that because the atmosphere was like this. In charge were the leaders of the ghetto, which were like the local governors recognized by the government. So when the gates of the ghettos opened, suddenly, within half a generation, people dropped down. Yeah. So it was in 1849. Yeah, Tov Reish Tes, 1849. Yeah. My great-great-grandfather, he died in Nisan of that year. He was called Rabbi Yaakov Posen, and he had two sons, Eliezer and Yekusiel. These two brothers were Dayanim in the Beis Din. And then at that stage they saw it was impossible to remain in the community, because the community, they were all Mechal Shas. It was at the end of everything, so they decided to make a minyan in 1849. Made a minyan, where were 11 people, no more, and two of them were this Rab Eliezer and Rab Posen, right? And they, 11 people, started a new community in a private home. That's how difficult it was. Within 2 years, there were enough followers to search for Rav for this very small community, a fledgling of a community. And Rabbi Shimshon Hirsch, he realized, he was a rabbi in North Germany, he realized the potentiality there to bring back Frankfurt as it was to be, and he agreed to join them, which was a big sacrifice because there was really nothing yet, right? And he built up a new community. But he lived till the last day of 1888, right? The 31st of December 1888, which is the 27th of Tavis of Tov Reish Mem Tes, right? But he built up the killer, and my ancestors, and our grandfathers, my wife's grandfather and my grandfather were brothers, you see. So he, through his leadership, he got the community back, yeah? And till the Nazis came, it was a thriving community. Yeah? And they went, it was few communities, they went higher and higher in standard of Yiddishkeit than most communities, because the effort of one single man. Right? We owe a lot to him. But his whole shitta was, yeah, can't go in partnership with people who don't serve and believe in the Torah. You can't be compromises. And if you belong to them as compromises, yeah, if you join us, okay, but our rule, we are governed by halacha. You can't do anything different, and that's how we built the community, very strict. Not everyone agreed with him on that. Yeah? Some thought he was too strict, but history showed that by the time Frankfurt was destroyed in 1938, yeah, the killer was all the time going up and up, which was a great thing.
And a lot of the killer then went to Washington Heights.
That was later. It was after later. The pogrom in 1938, on the 11th of November. One of the son-in-law of Rabbi Hirsch was Salomon Breuer. He was from Hungary, and he married the youngest daughter, twin daughter of Rabbi Hirsch, and the other twin daughter he married somebody called Michael Levy. Now I know about him. His son Isaac Levy was a prominent member of the Das Yisrael in North London in N16, and he was a dentist. Yeah, and his son was also a dentist. Yeah, and he was a very, very good man. When the young people used to discuss with him what Panosa should do, right? He said, yeah, the best Panosa is dentistry. Yeah, and he said, you don't have to open up next to me, yeah, there's plenty of room, but you got time for learning and for time for davening, because it's not like a doctor that he's got to rush about, you know. He was a very good man, an honest man, right? At the end of his life, he was very weak, etc. One day I met him and asked, Dr. Levy, how are you keeping? You know what he answered me? Better than I deserve.
That's incredible.
That's something, you know? Yeah, it's one of the songs. But his father, Michael Levy, was the son-in-law of Rabbi Hirsch, yeah, we call him Rabbi Hirsch, yeah? He was an honest man. He was a businessman, an example to the community. Now, in the 1920s, there was a lot of fraud going on in the community. People claiming insurance weren't entitled to, you know, and Jewish people also doing it. It was Chil Hashem. He had a warehouse, he had a little office, and behind the office he had a warehouse where he stocked, I don't know what he was dealing in, but whatever he was dealing in was there, and he had a fire, right? Now, the fire occurred when his warehouse was empty. Yeah? I had the boxes standing there, but nothing valuable, or there was ashes left and a remainder of the fire. So he lost a part of his office. Yeah? So he put a claim in, yeah, for a table with a few chairs, that's all. A few English pounds, nothing else. Yeah, that's all he claimed. I mean, he could have claimed thousands for the warehouse. The director of the insurance company phoned up and wanted to come and see you. He came in, shook his hands. I want to shake hands with an honest man. Yeah, he was so smart he could have claimed thousands. Yeah, and he didn't claim a penny more than he was entitled to. It was a Kiddush Hashem. That's the family they came from. You know, and it's an example we have got. That's from my father's side. Yeah, from my mother's side, he was what we call. Can you see the picture?
Yeah, it's.
He was called Rabbi Yaakov Ettlinger. He came from Karlsruhe in southern Germany, and he became the rabbi in Hamburg, really in the Altona. It's a suburb here, and he became the chief rabbi there. And he was the last Torah giant in Germany. Right? He passed away in Tofresh Lamed Beis, 1871, on the first night of Hanukkah. Because we know this from my grandmother, because her father came in, yeah, and said, the grandfather was Nifta, will you please stop praying? They were praying on Dreidel, you know, on Hanukkah. She was a girl of 11, my grandmother, and she told us that her father came in and he was Nifta on the thing. He was the last leader in Germany. And you know his forum, Ochlener, Bikurianka, a number of forums in Germany did a few essays. Yeah? So he was really the last big leader. And you can see it. When he was a young man, it's printed, he got a reply Shuvas for Rabbi Kiva Eger, who was the giant. Right? So he was very, and that's the other side of our family. Right? So now, from going back again from the Posen side, he arrives in Germany in 1717, right? And we know the story, it's printed, because he said he's going to print once safer or so for the benefit of Klal Yisrael. He's going to get money to finance it. But in the title page, he writes a whole article of what happened. And his article, every word, yeah, is a quotation from somewhere. It's amazing what a person he must have been, right? I've got a nephew who's deciphered everything. He's copied it out and he's published some of the things, right? So these people were giants. We don't know that. But what happened is, the reform in Germany killed the whole Jewry in Germany, really. They did as much damage, Ruchnistik, which the Nazis did Gashmistik. That was terrible. In a half a generation, yeah, the whole community perished because there is the Haflo, right? He was one of the last Rabbonim in Frankfurt. His son became the very last big Rov, Nachmet Taudi was called, yeah? And he writes his own sefer, with all his sermons he gave on Shabbos and Droshes, yeah? The first sermon he gave, first few pages when he started in the years, they were like you did in olden times, telling people high things. Yes, yeah. For instance, do a bit more learning Gemara, do a bit more that. Your davening should be better. You know, like you call to a high standard. Within 15 years, he preached against Chilul Shabbos, against immorality. He got no idea how through being emancipated, the ghetto stopped. Most people couldn't take it and went off Yiddishkeit. And in this way, Shamshon Volher stepped in and he managed with extremity, yeah, I must do it, not everybody agreed with him, because Rabbi Bamberger from Würzburg, yeah, who was also a giant in Torah, he thought it went too extreme. The most meant, they were leaders, yeah, but history decides these things, but at the time you can't know which is, you know yourself, you got children at home, yeah? one child got to be strict, and otherwise you can't be strict because you ruin him. You know how far to go. But when it comes to community, yeah, it's very difficult to make up your mind which way to go. This is only decided 100 years later. Yeah? We see from today that community in Frankfurt survived till the destruction in 1938, and the community in Würzburg wasn't such a community. That's history, but of course it's not for us to judge people that they were both Torah giants. Yeah? It's not fair with hindsight, but they both went in a certain way. They both had the same purpose, to keep Yiddishkeit. Yeah? And you know yourself, you treat children, yeah? One is successful, it's not successful, this happens. I mean, in the best families, they have children who don't grow up the way you want to, and this is what you call Sata Shmaya. Yeah? But it's very difficult to decide at the time. Yeah? History will tell, but at the time, it's difficult to judge, right?
And Rav, can I ask, when were you born?
I was born still in Frankfurt after the First War.
In what? Do you know the date? Do you know the...
What?
Do you know the date?
1927.
In Frankfurt?
Yeah, I remember Frankfurt slightly, but I'll tell you the story about Frankfurt. Yeah, I mean, we were old Frankfurters. Yeah, my father, Sonnewoche, was a very clever man. A great, very balanced with his thoughts. Yes, and one of the greatest things he had, it was honest to himself, not to others. Others for honest to himself. He did not get influenced in his decision by his feelings. Yeah? Most people in those days, if Hitler was coming, said, oh, it'll be all right. Yeah? It'll blow over. How do you know it's going to be all right? Because you're wishful thinking. That's not honest. You must weigh up the information you've got. You've got this notorious book, Mein Kampf. He writes clearly what he's going to do. I see, he puts dates in that year he conquered that country, that country, and he put Britain 1948, yeah, on the thing. But his main theme in the whole book is destruction, chas v'shalom, of Klal Yisrael. What's the main purpose? So far, my father-in-law was dying in Frankfurt, and he survived, and he came to England. He said, there's never been such a mighty king, Kaiser, what you call him, who ruled from the Arctic to the Sahara, from the Atlantic till the Ural Mountains, a huge empire he had in 1942. If you look at the map, where his empire was huge, and he was fighting a war of survival. Either he'll win or he'll perish. 1942, we didn't know what could happen. It's a very serious time in the war. It was on the balance. When on the 21st of June in 1942, Rommel, the Nazi commander, marched into Tobruk. Tobruk was a little fortress which when they retreated in North Africa, and the British had drew back to El Alamein near Alexandria. Yeah, the whole North Africa was in German hands except Tobruk, where they held out a garrison. And on that day it fell, and Churchill was fuming on this because it was his last stronghold. Yeah, it was black, the future. Yeah, so he was the strongest person, Hitler, and any commander like this would concentrate on his army to strengthen it and to give a final blow. What he did, yeah, he took from his war effort a big effort to go against the Jews. Right? It's not normal. Yeah? If it had by any sense, he would have said, I leave everything now. Let's conquer and win, then I can do what I like. Yeah? He didn't. I mean, it's all from heaven. Yeah? So he said, my father-in-law, he said, he's never been such a mighty king as that. And what bothered him most was a handful of Jews. I mean, against the population, what he owned, a few billion people or so, yeah, those few Jews, however they were, they shouldn't have bothered him at that stage. You're fighting a war of survival, yeah, it's Shumayim, all these things, we know that, but that was the blackest time. I remember I had an uncle in Yerushalayim at that time, and he said they went on Shiva Osa B'Tamas, Tovshin Beis, 1942, to the Kosovo. They didn't have anything else. You could go, and they were really crying out to Hashem because they realized it took for hours. Yeah, Rommel could be in Jerusalem. They were trembling, but if you would come here, I would like to mention what has happened. It was terrible. Hashem did different. Baruch Hashem on this, yeah. But it's very. I remember the times, very serious times that. I remember we talked about the once evacuation in September 1939. What you remember?
Can I just ask, when you were growing up in Frankfurt, do you remember the rise when Hitler came to power?
No, and look, I left Frankfurt, I was in 4, yeah? So what do I remember already? I can't remember. Whatever I do remember is probably what I heard later on.
And what is your first recollections of Frankfurt, or what do you remember about Frankfurt? Do you have any recollections?
Very little. I remember kindergarten, I remember that few things, when I go in the park and other things, little things, yeah.
And the shul?
Do you remember? My brother born on the first night Seder in 1930, yes. And we went out to visit my mother in hospital, yeah. And being Pesach was there's no candies, no sweets, nothing in those days, yeah. So we each got a cube sugar. I was 2.5. But nothing serious, I remember. All I remember would be what I heard later on.
And the shul, do you ever remember going to the shul in Frankfurt?
Yes, I remember the shul. Yeah, I think I got photos here.
But do you remember the shul?
A big stone, heavy stone built shul. This was only built in 1905, 06. Yeah? Yeah, massive stone, heavy, yeah? And really a heavy building, yeah? But they had a lot of effort to destroy that, yeah? And you remember before the First War, the killer in Frankfurt under Rabbi Hirsch and his son-in-law, Rabbi Boyer, were ever so rich. Mm-hmm. Very rich community. It was difficult on Purim to find somebody to give tzedakah to. Yeah. That was till the First War, right? And they built a big Mikve in 1909, everything fabulous, right? And that was a strong community then by then already, yeah? Because remember it was founded in 1949, yeah? 1849, and by that time it was nearly 60 years old, and the effort in that to build up was fabulous that they managed to get such a strong community.
So, Rav, can I ask, did your father read Mein Kampf? Did your father actually read Hitler's, Yamashimo's Mein Kampf?
He must have known about it. Probably, he told all his friends, why do you read the Frankfurter Zeitung? This was like a friendly paper, right? You should read the Stürmer and these papers. He said, you're putting wool over your eyes, yeah? You are trying to read something which is pleasant to read. That's not the sense, yeah? And the sense is you face everything, yeah? And I'll tell you something, yeah? To show the person he was, yeah? We came back from the yeshiva, an older brother of mine was only a year older, so very near in age, the same standard in the yeshiva, yeah? We came back after the first term, or second, whatever it was, yeah? First month, yeah? So my father said to us, I should test you what you've learned. It would be a shame if you don't know what you've learned. He said 6 months of it, yeah? I'm going to find a new piece of Gemara you've never seen before, not learned yet. Like if you also prepare, you can take any books, any forum to look up, which I name and everything. Look up, you can do what you like, yeah? I'll test you how you manage something new. Yeah? He wanted to see whether we managed to find all the difficult parts which are meant other things, yeah? You've never heard of such a way before, have you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a special man. I'll tell you something else about him, yeah? In 1932, business was very bad. The Depression, 1929, other things. Now, he was employed by an international company called the Tonerde. I don't think it means anything to me today, but the boss, yeah, was called somebody Sondheim, I think, yeah, and he was a very, very firm person, yeah, very rich, but then he kept his business, and he had Jewish employees. In those days, he had many more employees than today, because it was nothing automated. With the computer and everything, and you don't need a shorthandist and a typist and everything, it's all in one, right? So in this community, this business was not dependent on a certain position geographically. It could be, they could have bought something in America and sold it in Japan, for heavy chemicals, coal, tar, fertilizers, right? So on that day in 1932, right, in March, election day, to point out what it meant to go that day, my mother, Sholem, was Yoledet. She had a baby 2 weeks earlier, and to travel in the first 2 weeks after that was in those days like traveling the second day to day. A mother was more or less confined to bed for 2 weeks, 2 weeks resting. In the first 4 weeks she did nothing. Not like today, but that's how the things were. Yeah, he left on that Sunday morning of election day. He had a sister in The Hague in Holland, and he said, if he gets in today, we'll be caught in a net. By midnight, all the functions will be closed. Right? He did not get in. He had a good amount of votes, but he did not get in. Your father did not get in this year, get in next year. It's not going back. Right? So the next year, Hitler got in 97%. There's no election in the world where the opposition has no votes at all. Where it's 97% is virtually 100%. Because these thugs were standing behind everybody, and it was no secret election. If they would have voted against the Nazis, they would have meant with a bad end. Yeah, it wasn't a fair election. But this being the wisdom not being influenced by his feeling, yeah. By him, what he pleaded people, why do you stay here? This Roche, Hitler, he says clearly he was going to do to us. Yeah. However difficult it is outside, most people didn't have Panosa outside, but they don't stay here, right? We had a cousin that was a nephew of my niece of my father. Yeah, he didn't have much of Panosa. He sold stamp collections. You can imagine. You can't be a very rich man. He had 8 little children. And a year later, got 9 sons, but 8 little children, yeah? He told him, your whole Panosa, you can put in a briefcase. All this stuff, how much does it take already? Go anywhere in the world, don't stay here, yeah? They did go out, nothing left. Father, mother, and 9 children, all destroyed.
Oh, they're all...
Yeah. The people were somehow, we make our decisions not with seichel, but with feelings.
But bro, you know what's so hard? That there were so many Yidden that were fought in the First World War for Germany.
Yeah,
the percentage...
They had a Iron Cross, like the Victoria Cross in London, in England,
and a lot of Yidden,
which was a very high thing, and probably got some pension out of it, yeah, made no difference. No difference whatsoever. Huh? But if you had no idea how the people were caught there, in the beginning, later was Mahat Shah, but in the beginning, they were caught by their wishful thinking that nothing will happen. And I mean, he and his henchmen made quite clear what the intention is. They made no secret of it. The first most important enemy were we, Klal Yisrael. He was there to do everything he did.
I just want to mention, Rav, at the end of the war, when they knew they were losing, and the army pleaded for more trains to save Berlin, to save the cities, they used those transports to transport the Yidden from Hungary. It went on till the very end. They would rather kill Yidden than save...
I built a Mikve in Miskolc. Miskolc is in northern Hungary, right? A beautiful community it was. in June 1944, yeah, they deported people in there, 22,000 Jews of the killer. Yeah? You can see it, all the names on the thing. In 3 days, they managed to clear the whole lot. They did train after train.
And those trains could have been used for the war effort, or to save their own cities, to save the...
Have you ever read a book written by... I'll come in a minute. Reb Michoel... I'll get to it in a minute, yeah? He wrote a book, Mina Meitza.
Yeah.
You know the book?
I've heard it, yeah.
Now, this book, yeah, he was...
Weissmandel.
What?
Weissmandel?
Weissmantel, right. Weissmantel, yeah. He writes, yeah, there, yeah, he met with Eichmann. Eichmann said, yeah, your American and British friends, yeah, can stop us. If they bombed the railway line, the bridges, the railway line to Auschwitz, yeah, we couldn't continue. Because the whole way it worked was the Germans were very streamlined. It worked like a factory. After they had to fit in, the transport from the ghetto to Auschwitz could only be done if at Auschwitz immediately can continue. If the train would be stopped midway, it'll break this whole like a manufacture, yeah. And so he said, that's what Rabbi Weissmantel said when he negotiated with the... Eichmann told him, what do you want of me? Yes, yeah. Speak to your American friends. They're at fault, yeah. Because they couldn't. So what it means? He said, what it means, we are doing the job for them. They're only too pleased what we are doing. That's what he said about original Americans. Yeah.
It's true. When they had the Evian conference, yeah. And no country.
And of course, what of course was a big aid to them, yeah, is in England the Zionists made that for propaganda. Yeah, they wrote the following. In England, in London especially, all the bombed areas, they surround them with a wall, right? Waterproofed it and pumped water from the Thames into there, a huge reservoir, millions of gallons. Yeah. So whenever the air raid came, in century bombs had enough water to extinguish the fires immediately. Right. Now these walls, of course, were new walls. Yeah. And so they painted on it. Yeah. Jews in Europe are dying. Open the doors of Palestine. Well, they know full well the British will never open the doors. Yeah. To save the Jews. Yeah, if they would have written, open the doors of Britain, it would be okay. Wouldn't have minded, yeah? It was against the British Palestine policy.
But right. It's very sad, because if they would have opened the gates...
But they used the political parts of Zionism, yeah, as a tool, yeah, to force them to save people from the ghettos and other things, which wasn't fair. Because this deal would have gone through if it would have been Palestine. If they would have said, help them to come out, get them to America, to Africa, to England, yeah, would be one thing. There would be no opposition. But they're using it for political... I tell you, that's a big Kastner stories, which I don't have to discuss here now, but which shows that they had no interest, saving the Jews of Europe. They had an interest with their own policy of creating a country here, which is not fair, using Jewish lives for all political end.
But also the British, when they allowed the kinder transport, it was till a limit, and if you were over 16, they wouldn't allow them in. And they wouldn't allow the parents in.
Of all the countries who helped a bit in 1938 to save German refugees, the British did the most for them. Most people, now I'll tell you something, when we go in the summer holidays, yeah, when we are young, family camps or whatever it is, yeah, camps, you may get 50 couples, or you may get 50 young boys together, or girl camps, you know how it goes in the summer, 2 weeks or 3 weeks in August, yeah. So one of the places I went to, we wanted to have kosher milk, of course. So somebody's got to go to a farm and watch it, yeah. So I didn't mind. I used to go in the morning, there at 5 o'clock and watching. And now the farmer was a lay preacher. Yeah, a lay preacher means he is what we call a galach, a kuma, yeah, but not for panosa. He does it l'shem mitzvah, I say, and he's a farmer, yeah. And whilst we were milking cows, yeah, he used to tell me things. Very nice, yeah. And so he said, a year earlier, when they saved all the Jews, yeah, it was a year earlier than the war. Now, the first year in the war, yeah, there was a British withdrawal from France, which was a miracle because they managed to get 80 or 90% of the troops over in 3 days.
That was from Dunkirk.
Dunkirk. I remember Dunkirk. I remember the trains passing our school, yeah, one after another with the soldiers. It was like a mirror for 3 days to see. And the Straits of Dover, yeah, the two oceans meet, yeah, it's always turbulent. Small ships could manage to go over 23 miles, right? Yeah, it was a miracle. So he told me, that guy, yeah, that we were served at Dunkirk. He feels was only because they were the only country to open the doors for the Jews.
He told you?
Yeah, he told me that, something. He asked me, you know, a few things. He told me, you know, that Joschke, yeah, he walked on the Kinneret, yeah. So I told him, look, you were not there to prove it. I wasn't there to disprove it, yeah. I told him, it makes no difference, yeah. We've got a parsha in the Torah that if a Novi Shaker comes, you can do listen, yeah, to test us, yeah. The fact that it is or not is not the last line. The last line is, did you go against the Torah or for the Torah?
It's in Dvorim.
You know the answer to me?
If you change one thing...
He was honest. He told me, I've never thought it from this angle. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But Rob, you know, I just have to mention something. What's so sad, they did know what was going on. I think in 42, in Parliament, they had a minute's silence because they heard that Jews were being killed in the camps. So the question is, why did Churchill, why did Roosevelt, why did they not bomb the railways? Why did they not bomb the camps?
Now, I'll tell you one thing. In 1943, it started the bombing. They were strong enough, the Americans especially, with their flying fortresses, you know, the B bombers, yeah, the flying fortresses. They made 1,000 bomber raid on Berlin, for instance. But one night, they bombed Hamburg. It was so intensive bombing that they reported that people in the street collapsed because there was no oxygen left. The fire consumed all oxygen. They killed 350,000 people in one night. They destroyed the place, yeah? Now, if they would have sent a message to Hitler, which you can always do in the war through a new country, if persecution of the Jews don't stop, every time we get the same medicine, he would have stopped.
They would have stopped, yeah.
Yeah, so Eichmann said, they could have stopped us, yeah? We are doing the job which they want to do, so far.
So Rob, I just want to mention, I met, and she's still alive, she's getting her 100 now, a lady who lives in Yerushalayim who was on the St. Louis, and that boat came to Miami, it came to Cuba, and was turned back.
Yeah.
And there were no protests. There was no.
Yeah.
Why was there no protests? Only the Rabbonim walked in Washington to try and meet with Roosevelt, and Roosevelt didn't even meet the Rabbonim on the march on.
Roosevelt was also Russian. Then, yeah. He was also Russian, yeah. Although Hitler in one of his speeches, I could understand German, he talked about der Jude Rosenfeld. He meant President Roosevelt, yeah, they called him Jude, yeah. But nothing, they were all showing, yeah. When it comes to Yom HaDin HaGodel, the future, yes, neither England nor America will get off free.
That's true, because they
won't get off free, yeah, we know that, yeah.
In Auschwitz today even, they have the pictures, aerial pictures of Auschwitz. It was taken by pilots. They had them in their hands in 44, in the beginning of 44. But they even had it before. But these are published in Auschwitz, and you can actually see them. Yeah. So why did, even in 44, they would have saved so many lives if they would have just bombed?
They, when they came into Bergen-Belsen in April 1945, yeah, British troops, right? There was a reporter for the BBC, I forget his name, a famous reporter, and he started a report what he saw, the terrible things, yeah? BBC wouldn't publish it. We're told not to publish it. Why? It may interfere with their anti-Jewish Palestine policy.
And also something very sad, the New York Times there was Jewish owned and very little on the show, very little that in all the years of the...
I mean, I lived through that in the thing. I tell you, I went to a non-Jewish school during the war. There were no Jewish schools in England. I was in a little place, an hour train drive, three-quarter hour train drive from Manchester, in the Peak District, very nice place up in the mountains, and called Buxton. And we had 500 people there on Yom Kippur in 1940, right? All from Manchester, most from London. We went to school there, the Goyish school. And Goy used to tell us, yeah, we need Hitler here to finish you off.
They told
in England during the war.
They said that to you?
Yeah. And that used to tell us, why did you go back to Jerusalem? So I used to answer him, yes, I would do, but the British won't let us.
You heard Graham say this?
The anti-Semitism we experienced at that time. We had to go to Cheder after school in the evening, cross a little park, nothing much, yeah? We were afraid of the Goyim. They pulled our caps off and other things. The anti-Semitism we experienced in England during the war is unbelievable. They were fighting Hitler, and they still said we need him here against the Jews.
And you heard somebody tell that to you directly?
Yeah, in school. I remember asking him, the British won't let us come back. He would go there. You can't get in there. You know, things like this. We are afraid of the Goyim. Yeah. The anti-Semitism has been and will always be there. Yeah. Yeah. Till Moshiach comes, it'll be there. There's no other way. Yeah. The less people keep Yiddishkeit, the worse anti-Semitism will come. Yeah. I know a very pious man. He was a businessman, yeah, but he used when he was called Shlomo Schwab, yeah, was a very a person that most of the day in his office, but he did business, yeah, that was the thing they called it, yeah? And when he used to speak to a guy ordering something or selling something, he used to say Schwab, Solomon Schwab. He wanted them to know that he's Jewish. Because a guy doesn't like if you hide yourself that you're Jewish. If you go open with him, you're Jewish, okay, he'll accept you. Yeah. But if you try to imitate that you're going, then I had a flight from Hong Kong to London, right? A long flight it is. Yeah. After 8 hours, yeah, I landed in the Arab states, the little ones, you know, Dubai, one of them, right? And played from Hong Kong, and then you go another 5-hour flights to London, right? So, but it was well after midnight in Dubai, because in Hong Kong was much later, but at the time, so I thought myself, I'd go out in the transit lounge, stretch my feet a bit, after all, there's another long flight coming. And as I went out, yeah, another person met me, yeah, from the passenger, and nose like this. And you can't get out here, boss, you're Jewish, yeah? Because an Arab country, yeah? He looks much more like a Jew like I do. Of course I went out, yeah? I could talk to the Arabs there, nothing will happen in the international lounge, you go out and come back again, yeah? But, you know, if you're trying to hide you're Jewish, they don't like it. If you open you're Jewish, they don't mind. Yeah, they don't like being misled.
It's so true, Rav.
Isn't it?
True. I went to dental school with a kippah on, and they accepted me. I was accepted on the interview, and I wore a kippah.
Yeah.
And they changed the exam for
fine.
me. It's true.
I went from a ship, Ostende to Dover for Cyprian. I mean, not much. It's quite done. I was in printing. We were printing diaries for the kid in Antwerp. I used to load my van up with all the diaries, crossed with the ship, and passed the customs, delivered, and bring back in the next ship in the night. Yeah, very nice. I always one of my children along. Yeah, it was the quickest way of delivery, and it didn't matter. Yeah, and as we were sitting on the ship to Dublin Marif on the way back, full in the summer. It's crowded. Where you go to the Marav? An Arab family came, Muslim family came, yeah. He puts his carpet on the floor, starts kneeling down. He says, this guy is in the berets to do it for his things. We as Jews should be berets for our religion. So with my son, with the Marav, stood in front of everybody and finished. They don't mind if you don't hide yourself as a Jew. If you pretend to be one of them and they find out you're Jewish, they hate you. It's just the opposite what they do.
It's so true. Now, can I just ask you, because it's unbelievable, can we go back, when your father decided that you must leave Germany,
Yeah.
do you remember the day when you left? I know you were very small.
Well,
Do you have
I remember it was on a Sunday in March 1932. Which day March I have to look up from the records, but I wouldn't remember it. I would remember very little. I remember crossing the Rhine near Cologne, and it was impressive. You were told, have a look out of the window now.
how old were you at this time? How old were you?
I was under 4.5.
But you remember, you have memories.
I remember, a few things I remember of these things, but of course, looking from the child's eyes is quite different. You know, if you ever go back to a place you haven't been since childhood, you suddenly see how small it is.
You always think it's much larger.
Much larger, but the impression you have as a child is quite different. But I must say, my father was a very wise person.
And your mother, she agreed? She agreed to go as well?
Of course. She knew, she knew who he was. And they were a very close couple. Yeah. And my mother had total respect for my father, for his wisdom and his thing.
And how many siblings did you have at this time?
We were, at that time, with my younger sister, we were 7, and there was one brother in Holland still. And he was born in the Catholic hospital. That's how it was. Then my maternal was a Catholic. Okay, nothing wrong with it, yeah? When it came to the brace, I had an uncle who was Meir. I came with the brace in the ward, you know, they did it there. In those days, a mother wouldn't go home for 10 days. It was early. You know, they thought they got him. He wanted to do the meal. The Joisel was hanging from the wall, yeah? What should he do? You can't take him off because you mustn't put him back again.
Yeah.
That's right, he said so. Well, what are you worried about? He's also malt. Yeah, he's a Jewish boy. But it was problems, yeah. But he was born in Holland, yeah. And he was a much younger than me, but he was a special person later on in London. He was head of the Bedikas Sharpness in London.
Sharpness?
Yeah, but he was a shochet once, yeah, also, yeah. And then he became that, yeah. But he worked so honestly on Bedika. The Rabbanim told them, if you do the one button, yes, then you can assume all the other buttons are okay, the thread. And he knew that it happens sometimes one button is different. And he said, look, at the end of the day, yeah, she's got to sew one more button on. And the thread runs out, yeah. Yeah, instead of taking a new reel for the thread, she picks up the floor a bit of thread just to finish it off. You know what happens. And this thread is sharpness.
Wow.
So he was so conscious what he did, yeah. I'll tell you, there was a case of a girl came up from here, from Israel, and when she arrived in London, she had no idea how cold it was. Didn't bring any clothes along in the winter. You know, instead of realizing in England if warm clothes she didn't, so she had no option but to buy a coat. Now, of course, she stands in the queue for a few days till he's got time to do it, yeah? But they told him this girl has got other things. He gave her priority, yeah? With no good, put everything aside and tested his coat, yeah? Yeah, and this girl had a sister-in-law, I think, or cousin, who wasn't married yet. And she was so impressed, she told her relatives, that is a boy for your daughter.
Wow.
That's how he found the children.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he was especially, he was there to do toivus, so to say, nice thing to other people. And when his chesed used to do it. Yeah. He wasn't so old when he was nifta in Tovshin Samaches, that's about 14 years ago now nearly. Yeah. So at that time, he was born in 34, which is Lamed Dalet. So he was when he lived in Summerfest 2008. So he was 80, I think. Not 80, I think so. And from 38 till 2008 is 70, isn't it? 74 he was.
So, Rav, can I ask, how did your father get into England? Did he need to have...
But, that is a story you should know. I mean, that's a story worthwhile. Everybody should realize that.
Because it wasn't so easy.
The honesty of a man, yes. He was in charge in Holland of the business as an employee. He was a director, but he wasn't a shareholder. So he was paid wages as the manager, right?
This is
my father. Yeah, okay, with responsibility. By 1937, he had made up his mind. He's got to go away from Europe. He saw that he's going to run over the other countries. Yeah, so he applied to the British Ministry of Interior, called Homes, a permit to come over with a business. Yeah, he could go over, and another partner, not a partner, colleague, was also top in the business. You two come over, but all the other employees, you got plenty of unemployed here, short-hand typists and bookkeepers. We don't need your people for that. Yeah, he said not coming over till every Jewish employee has got a visa to come to England, because he says if he leaves anything behind, that means they're destined to be killed.
And what year was this?
37, 36, 37. And so by 38, 39, it took him 3 years, he got a visa for everybody, and they all came over. Now, I was sitting at this table where you are sitting now in 1998 maybe, about 25 years ago, right? I had two brothers coming into me. One lived in New York, one lived in Bnei Brak. They were sons of one of the people my father brought over. I said, we have come specially to meet you, to give thanks on behalf of our late father, to you as a son of your father, right? But for saving the lives of their father and other things.
But Rav, can I ask, you went to England...
1939, 6 months before the war.
That's when you went to England?
6 months. As near as this.
You went 6 months?
England, we went to London. From Holland.
And so you went from Germany?
In 1932 we came to Holland.
To Holland.
And in 1939 we came to England.
And where did you stay in Holland? In which?
In The Hague.
And was there from Kehille quite a few?
Yeah, it was from definitely. Yeah.
And you spoke Dutch, or you spoke German?
Nederlands. Ik praat Nederlands.
And you spoke Dutch? Wow.
Yeah, I learned it. It's similar to Afrikaans.
It's very similar.
Yeah, that I understand it, yeah. And I went to school there. Right?
And was it a Jewish school or a public school?
No, I wasn't no Jewish schools. It wasn't possible. And I came to London, I was in a Jewish school, the Victor School.
That was Rabbi Schoenfeld.
But I wasn't long there. I started school after Pesach, till Tisha B'Av, 3 months. And then the war broke out.
So
and then we went to Shefford, which you could know already, you've recorded that.
So, can I just ask, when you were in Holland, in The Hague, and you went to school, did you have any anti-Semitism from the Dutch children, or?
No, the Dutch were quite tame. They were Jewish friendly.
And you could go to school with
No, but it wasn't possible in those days to wear kippah, we say, keppel, in school by going. Yet you couldn't do. What was very, very difficult, but we managed it, when it came Cholamot Sukkos. Pesach was Easter vacation, Cholamot Sukkos was only school, And when Sukkos was like this year on Shabbos, so we had from Monday to Friday to go to school, But we are allowed to sit there without writing. That's something.
And on Shabbos, did you have to go to...
No, Shabbos is free. In Zurich, on Shabbos, they had problems. But in Holland, there was no school on Shabbos. In England, there was problems in non-Jewish schools, but they didn't make problems that we stayed away from there. Yeah, but in Holland, it was so far that when they helped us in winter. It was Shabbos about 3:30 or something, isn't it?
No, it's
maybe after 3:45, and we were allowed to go early Friday afternoon. Yeah, they gave us permission, and not only that. Yeah, the bell which always rang at the end of the lesson, end of the thing, that special they called the Yotze bell, the Jewish bell. On Friday afternoon, they belled the bell, all the Jewish children could go. Yeah. Now another thing is, whenever a baby is born, they go in there, they give beschreute Mösjes. Now what is beschreut? Biscuits, kind of biscuit dough, and little colored sugars on it. Yeah, like little maize droppings. Yeah, so just for I told you they give biscuits in a family. The other children got biscuits when the mother got a baby. So when the queen got her daughter Juliana, I remember still in January 1937. Yeah, of course all the school got the biscuits. Of course, royalty. So the headmistress or headmaster rang up my mother. Can she tell her where the Jewish baker is? They want to buy Jewish biscuits. Yeah, so far they went. Yeah,
it's incredible.
It happened. They were ever so pro-Jewish. Yeah, but yeah, when the war came, a lot of things, because they were promised 15 gulden. Gulden is, I don't know what the value was in those days. Wasn't a very princely sum, but they got a sum. Anybody who hands over a Jew gets money. And some people did.
There was a very high percentage of Dutch Jewry that were sent to the camps, but there were also many righteous goyim in Holland.
I'm sure there were.
That saved, and I've met many people that were saved in hiding.
Yeah, definitely. I think Holland was the best country of all the countries.
Well,
the French went very good. And the Danish were good.
The Danish were incredibly good.
No, Danish and the Dutch were. The Belgians not so much, and the French weren't nice at all.
There were certain places in France where there were villages where they did say and they didn't. But 80,000 French Yidden were sent to the camps.
Listen, if Chas v'Sholem they would have come to England, the English going would have been any better either. They were anti-Semites. They go in England. Here, look, the first country who really made persecutions in 1200 were the British. Expulsion, yeah, and what they did, and the pogroms they had. They murdered all the inhabitants of York.
That was in the castle in York.
Yeah, all these things. The French, the British were worse than any other ones.
So, Rob, can I ask, when you left France, when you left Holland to go to England, do you remember that voyage? Do you remember leaving?
Yeah, I was 11. I was 11 and a half nearly. Of course I remember the whole journey. But we were not told. My father wouldn't tell us. Yeah, we were taken virtually from school onto the train. Right? My father didn't want to talk about it. He was afraid if he mentioned to us and we mentioned to other people, there could be some people or so who could cause trouble. He was very cautious.
So your father managed to get the entry...
not only for us,
but for
all the employees, even the junior employees. And then it's like a captain not leaving the ship until all are saved. Yeah, the responsibility he had the immediate traits that he did. It must have been a special person.
You know how many people came with?
I don't know the numbers, but I know quite a few came in the business. But whoever he could save, he saved. He didn't go away to save his own life. He worked on it that he could save as many people as he could.
And when you were in The Hague, do you remember the shul that you went to?
Yes, of course I remember the shul. I remember there, I remember little boys we were, and I don't know how easy we were, but there were little boys there, and they keep little boys in check, small ones, 7, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, you know how it goes, and right,
And was there quite a from Kehilla in The Hague at that time? Was there quite a from Kehilla?
Yeah, there was from Kehilla. The ones who learn it in Holland, that's the trouble, The people, they would attend the Shia now and then.
And who was the Rav of the Kehilla? Do you remember
they both perished, I think, in the war. One called Marsen and one from Gelderen. That's the names I remember. But they were the first people that always took the Nazis were the leaders. That was the. But it's very few survived in hiding, but others,
It's very sad in Holland, the amount of Jews that died.
Yeah, but even in Holland, even the country as it was before the war was pro-Jewish, There were a number of Rishonim there, and these, of course, pushed everybody.
And going to England, did you go by ship?
Yeah, of course. No, planes were unheard of in those days.
The journey on the ship, do you recall? Do you remember?
Of course I recall it, like today. I tell you, my brother slept on the lower part, and I slept on the bunk on top, and we're all sick, and he being lower, he got the brunt of it, But I remember leaving. We had to leave 5 or 6 hours late because of fog, I remember. When we arrived in London, Gravesend, the docks in the Thames, we suddenly saw that the clock was 20 minutes earlier in England. In those days, there were no time zones. Every country had its own. So between London and Amsterdam, it's 20 minutes. So it's not like hours today, 1 hour, So we're 20 minutes different. And I saw, to me, it was 1 o'clock on my watch or the ship's clock. It was only 20 to 1. That's my first impression we had there. And we were the fortunate ones because my father still at Posen. Most of his G's had no money at all.
And where did you go when you came to England?
We went for a bit of time in Bournemouth. There was a Jewish hotel there, and so we didn't have hotel night, but they took us as a family, right? And I remember the owner of the hotel was a refugee from Germany, and he was a rabbi in Germany. He used to learn with us every day Gemara.
Do you remember his name?
I remember that. I remember it said, when I didn't listen, "You're not on the beach now." I remember him telling us that. And then we went to London, and it was Pesach, and we were in London till after Tish B'Av.
Where did you stay in London?
We had rented a house there.
I
rented a house.
In which area?
Stamford Hill.
Stamford Hill.
Lodge Broad. Since 1939, I lived in that area, Lodge Broad, Lodge Park. Till we moved in 95. We as I said, Medalia, but we moved here. Although he came a lot of times here, and I bought this house here in the summer of '93, right? And it went so that I paid down £1,000 for a flat up the road, first floor. I came back next week to sign contracts, and they said they must apologize. They give it my deal to somebody else. Mistake, he said, but we can't go back on it, But don't worry, we'll find you something good. So I found this one. It's got a garden.
And
it's
much on the ground floor.
Ground floor, everything. My friend, it's a beautiful dairy here, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
First time you've been here. I'll show you around later.
And Rob, can I ask, when you came to Stamford Hill, there were many other refugees in Stamford Hill?
Yeah, full of refugees, definitely.
And a lot of German refugees as well?
Yeah, a lot of German, I said. And of course, there are people who were there before, but people were there, it was a very small community. The killers swelled in 2 occasions. In 1938-9, the German refugees, and in 1955, the Hungarian refugees after the uprising.
And did you learn English very quickly, or?
Don't know how quickly I learned English. In the beginning, we spoke Dutch, not even German. I learned German in England, proper German, and because the refugees spoke German. And at the same time, we learned English.
And when you got to Stamford Hill, did you go to school immediately?
Yes, I went to the Jewish school of Rabbi Schoenfeld.
And did you know?
Albeit only from Pesach till Tisha B'Av.
And
not long.
And you met Rabbi Schoenfeld?
Yes, but we are children, of course. We knew him. But I tell you, so little English, was very difficult in school. So got ever so many bad marks in most subjects, except for geography and mathematics, because you don't need to know English for that. Yeah, I got 100% on that, which is a big high you get. Others got hardly anything, but we learned it. Then the war broke out. Yeah, and we went to a place south of London, Dorking. Yeah, not far, 3,000 hours by train, right? But it was in the countryside. I went to school, by Goisha school there, the whole winter of 1939-40. And then when the Germans invaded Holland, Belgium and France, it got too hot. Yeah, my father managed to move up to near Manchester, a place called Buxton. It's north in Manchester, north of England. Yeah, and he said whatever happens, it's not as dangerous as being near Dover, near the coast. In London, it's too near, right? And we moved from there. I went then to 1943 in English college.
And was there any Yidden living there in that
Yes, I remember Yom Kippur 1940, Tovshin Aleph, yeah, we had 500 Mispalalim in the town hall, they hired the town hall, and all the refugees from Manchester, for the bombing, it was too dangerous to stay overnight in the city. It was very dangerous because the Germans came over. They called it the Blitz of 1940. And I remember the German bombers came every night over Buxton and didn't drop bombs there because it was unimportant. In any case, it was too dark for them to see where the houses were because it was blackout. You know what blackout is? You couldn't see. So we used to hear the German bombers, the old bombers, very slow. It went, that noise. I still hear my thing, frightening noise, but Baruch Hashem, nothing happened. Yeah, so we had many people from Manchester, right? And I remember we had 500 people davening in the town hall, which they rented for Yom Daroin in Tovshin Aleph, 1940. Yeah.
And Rav, do you remember any of the Rabbonim at this time?
No, I wouldn't know as a child. I couldn't judge who's a big rabbi. It's important to judge. We definitely had, but it was of course a very frightening time for the grown-ups who knew what was happening.
And then, when the war ended, you remember when.
Yeah, I remember battles and others, but I remember all the things, yeah. In school we were discussing them. We had no idea as children how dangerous the situation was.
And did you know what was happening in Europe during the war?
We did. I tell you something, till 1943 I don't think people realized about the deportations and the concentration camps. I remember a cartoon in August 1943, yeah, depicting in the Jewish paper, yeah, two women talked, yeah, and they're shopping, that you couldn't buy this, everything was short in the war, of course, yeah. Oh, it's all the fault of the Jews, dying. And in the background you see Jews hanging on the gallows. Yeah, it was a cartoon, but the show, yeah, it's fault of the Jews. The Jews are suffering, and it's fault of the Jews. The British were very anti-Jewish during the war. I tell you that Churchill couldn't authorize the chief of bomber command, yeah, to bomb Auschwitz, the crematoriums, and the railway line. It would have stopped all the deportations.
So true.
Yeah. They did it, and although he was a big leader, Churchill, yeah, when it came to the Jews, he did not do what should have been done.
So true.
Yeah. The anti-Semitism. So there was somebody called Emanuel Shinwell. He was a minister, right, in England. He was in the parliament, yeah, and a woman MP, or I think it was woman MP, with the anti-Semitic mark, yeah. Yeah, he went over to her, slapped her in the face in Parliament. So the Speaker, is the head, the speaker, the thing, said he is right, because she had no right to make that remark against the Jews. Yeah. The general feeling in the country was anti-Jewish. Although we were fighting a war against Hitler.
And I think it must have been also difficult with the white paper and then the British mandate.
Yeah, all these things.
And then what happened in till 48, till the War of Independence.
But that white paper of 1917, Balfour got us in. People didn't realize what he had committed himself to, and tried to backtrack on that. It wasn't so easy, but that, of course, made the British even more anti. They were caught of their, of the mind. They would never have signed the Balfour Declaration if they realized really what it meant.
And Rob, can I just ask, when after the war, when you have the ships coming to mandate Palestine and the Exodus and all was happening?
Very few, ships, but for the amount of refugees we had, very few came over. One or two, but during the war they came, and the British wouldn't let them in.
And how was the feeling when say the King David Hotel was blown up and there were British soldiers that were fighting?
We were in England, but
there was a lot of anti-Jewish feeling.
We were Jews first, not British, definitely, but it was a difficult position.
And you remember in 48 when the state was declared?
Yeah, of course I remember that. It was a very serious time, because we saw from the distance that it was virtually impossible they should do. The British made everything possible for the Arabs to continue after they left against it. And I tell you that the Arabs didn't succeed, right? Generally would have succeeded, but there was nothing here to defend, right? And the British did everything possible, to make the state impossible after they left.
It's true. The
British, listen. When it comes to Yom Adin, if it comes to Yom Adin, they will not get off freely, right? The British, the way they behaved, But I tell you something. I always said like this. A guy who is not a Zionist is an anti-Semite, right? He's against Palestine, against Israel. A Yid who's Zionist is apikoros. It's a strong word, For Goy, being against Israel it doesn't mean Israel, it means against the Jews. But the Jewish people, they're using Israel, the politics, as a leverage, It is not fair. Because if at the war they would have shouted, to the British, to the Americans, to the French colonies, open their gates so that the refugees in, would be the right thing. But they, as I said before, they used this Palestine policy, to save Yidden, to further their politics. They knew quite well, the British would never give in, to the Zionists, to open the gates of Palestine to the Jews in, because they were too afraid of the Arabs.
But the Americans could have let the St. Louis go.
It wasn't so easy.
There was so many...
crossing the Atlantic in 1940s was not like today. And when the people by ship and other things, it wasn't so easy, right? And the Americans were very tight with their people in. They were, listen, Roosevelt wasn't a Jew lover.
He never went out to meet the Rabbonim when they came to march in Washington.
The Goyim, as such, whoever they were, they, when Moshiach will come, they won't get off very easily. Because what they've done to Klal Yisrael, right? Only we as Jews, we as believers, we rely on Hashem to save us, right?
So Rav, I want to ask you, how did you get involved in becoming the world authority on mikvot?
From above. I tell you.
When did you start your interest in...
May I tell you something? I'll be quite honest on that. I sit on the computer, do a plan, When I start, I have no idea what I'm going to do, right? Yeah? After all, yes, knowledge is in the brains. What are brains? Flesh and blood. How can flesh and blood start thinking? It's a miracle, right?
Yeah.
But if you know from your professional things, you do a good analysis first and another thing, and you get to the right thing. How does it come? From above, right? Yeah. I know one thing, that when I do something, it's what you call siyata de shumaya. But I'm not no cleverer than anybody else. Yeah. I pray that I should do it well. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a donation Hashem's given me that I can do it. And why boast about it? It's not me. Yeah. It's like a rich man. Somebody he makes a good business deal. He's a fool to think because he's cleverer. Nothing to do with it. I'll tell you one story you must know, and I think it's worthwhile everyone to hear that story. Yeah? As I told you, my father was one of the directors of the business, yeah? Albeit he wasn't a partner, right? But an employee, but senior employee. Yeah? And they used to buy in one country a heavy chemical, be pitch, tar, coal, fertilizers, whatever it is. Yeah. So what did they do? Let's say they get an inquiry from one country, what's the best price, 10,000 tons of fertilizer, big quantities. So they used to go to suppliers and see what they could offer, and with carriage and sure all the things. Yeah? So it was Erev Rosh Hashanah Wednesday. They had to acquire a big amount of certain chemical. So they sent round. Everything was wire in those days, telegrams. No, people didn't use phones yet. Everything, yeah? So they wrote to two or three people. Yeah, we had inquiry for 10,000 tons, let's say, of this and that. Yeah, what's the best price you give us? Right? Wednesday, during the day. By the time they left Wednesday afternoon, Erev Yontef, yeah, they had no reply. So close the business, finished, Yontef. Yeah, Thursday morning. Or maybe after the close Wednesday, but Thursday morning, the telegram from the supplier, we can offer you it for 100 per ton, whatever it is, yeah, dollars a pound, for 100, which was a good price, yeah. Of course, they didn't answer Yontef, and nobody was in the business. They sent the second wire, yeah. Look, we can mention go down to 99. By Friday, there no answer. I sent an offer 97, 96. But Shabbos morning, of course, the third day, no one was there, they went down to 95. Now listen a moment. Yeah? But I said, that's our last offer. If you don't get a reply, the offer is finished. They came in on Sunday, yeah, in the business, to see what business happened. They saw all the telegrams wire lying there. The white bag, we accept the price of 95. So my father said to me, the money they earned, that Yontef when they were not working, was a panosa for a whole year.
Really?
By not working. Had they worked, yeah, they would have accepted the first price. So, but by not there, they were down and down, the supplier, yeah, and the last price they offered was so low that, like you said, it was a Metzia. And isn't it a lovely story?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
By not working.
So my father said, by not working, it was mamash, it showed the nest. By not working, they earned money. And which gave all the employees, I mean, some little chizuk in Emunah, yeah, but the boss of that consultant, yeah, he was about stock, okay. So people used to come to him, can you give me that bit of thing, yeah. So the one person came in, let's say he wants to borrow 100 gulden. Gulden was in those days, yeah. Gulden today, calling us, yeah. You know what he did, yeah. Before anything, he said, what are you going to do with it? I want to invest into this business, certain business. So he sat down and asked, how good to set about for your business? And he gave him advice how to do the business with that money. Not that he gave the money, yeah, but he spent time for the boss of a big company to sit down half an hour with a person and see to his problems and advise him. Was more stoker than, isn't it?
That's incredible.
Incredible. Yeah, I always say, if we know the piety, the tzidkas of our ancestors, yeah, would be ashamed of how little we are today.
Sure.
Isn't it?
It's so
I'll
true.
tell you another story, yeah? My grandmother, right, she became widowed when her father was not yet 12, yeah, in 1905, yeah? And she had to have the chinuch for her children, yeah? A small family, we didn't, he had a big family there, in 1905. But my father got married in 1920 after the First War, right? So being my grandfather being a shutaf in the business in Germany, yeah, that was his income, yeah. Now they had shops selling silverware, cutlery, and other things, yeah. So so by the time 1920 came, 15 years later, the uncle said, you know, there are few brothers in the business, how long do you still have to pay wages? After all, we've paid 15 years, which is a long time. And he was a shutaf, entitled to something, but, you know, so my father said to them following, now listen, I will not take uncles to the Torah. Yeah? Mm-hmm. If you feel you're entitled not to pay, accept it. Right? Okay. Right? After all, 50 years long time. Do me one favor. My grandmother lived with us, you see. She was a widow. So send her a check every month, like before. I'll take you check back from my account. Everything. Till it was 13 years, I think. Yeah? She did not know that they didn't possess any money. Never did.
And he paid it.
My father paid. He wasn't a wealthy man, he was an employee. Yeah? That is keep it up. Keep it in. Isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. People being like this, yes? But I tell you another thing, to show you how people, but only people, how they used to be pious people. You didn't, nobody really talked about each other, yeah? They did it as a matter of course, not to get recognition or things, yeah? My grandmother had a brother who was a doctor. Now, you must remember, going back in those years, yeah, 50 years ago, not 50, 150 years ago, yeah, 150 years ago, when you went to the doctor, you had to pay a bill. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you pay a bill. When the doctor came to the house, you had to pay more. You had the fees for the doctor. That used to be no free medicine. There was a girl, yeah, in the community, a young girl had TB. The TB in those days, 120 years ago, yeah, was a killer. Yeah, nothing. So he used to come there, the doctor, and give him a treat what he could do. One night at 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, my grandmother with some other women from the Hefer Kadisha was sitting at the bed of the girl saying Seamus, Gesis, yeah, and suddenly they hear the horse coming. The horse was okay yet. Horse coming. She knew it was her brother, the doctor, going up, ringing the bell. He immediately comes to the door and he said, Jacob, he was called Jacob, Jacob, what are you coming now? We are reflective and saying Seamus, yeah? You're working hard all day. You can't afford being up in the night as well, yeah? Yeah? So he said to her, what you know, I knew all the time. There's no hope for the girl. But I've never taken a penny from these people. They can't afford it. I used to come free. I wanted to feel that although they couldn't pay, we've done everything possible to save the girl. I come now when I know it's after the end even, they should still think I'm trying to save the girl.
Sure.
A man stands up in the middle of the night, yeah, to do Midas Chesed. That's a story worthwhile talking. And that, yeah, I'm sure he was an exception in that. That people at that time, what we call avodas hamidot, avodas hamidas, yeah, people had at that time, yeah, to do a chesed, to do a kindness. You know full well when you're in South Africa, you meet somebody else on the street whom you don't know, a Jewish man, you greet him.
For sure.
You have good Shabbos, everything, yeah. You walk in the street here, you don't eat each other, you're not brothers. I remember I walked, I had Shiva Bochum in Dr. Pisgah. You've got to go 20 minutes in the back streets. At 1 o'clock in the morning I came home Friday night, yeah? And I meet people on the street, still walking. Everyone said Shabbat Shalom or Shabbat, whatever it is. They were surprised. Yeah, you must teach them. If you meet a person and you greet him nicely, not just say good morning or Shabbat, with a smile on your face. Yeah, yeah, you've made that person's day. You know, everybody that goes around has got its worries, its pressure. His son smiles at you. My father used to tell us, it doesn't cost you a penny to smile at somebody. Why don't you show a nice face to somebody? Greet him with a nice face. And it makes all the difference. Yeah. We must preach that, but we must preach. We mustn't give up.
Rav, can I just ask you, because it is just something, it's unbelievable. After you finished school, did you go to yeshiva?
Immediately. I finished school July 1943, right? And then was summer holidays. My father sent us straight to yeshiva in England, south of England, outside London, Staines. He wouldn't know it's on the existence anymore today. But it wasn't a yeshiva katana, but like, yeah, that the age group was much wider, yeah, from the youngest till the oldest was much wider, yeah, but it was during wartime. A refugee a man who came over, he was a bit of a rabbi in a town in Belgium, right, and he escaped, but all his family perished, yeah. He was all alone, and he made the yeshiva, and he lived, this was his life.
What, do you remember his name?
Weingarten, Chaim Weingarten, I think it was called, yeah. But he was fire, like a burning, yeah, thing. And he used to wake up the children in the morning. Boys, I mean, the boys from 12, 10, before mitzvah even, till 20, yeah, in those days. But it was a good yeshiva at that time for the thing. And then I went there, and then I went to Gateshead. It was wartime. And it was difficult to get into Gateshead because it was near the coast, 15 miles, and being a German, they needed permission, police permission, to travel there because they were afraid of spies. Yeah, I'm an expert spy, you see, but it doesn't matter.
And
yeah?
who were the Rabbanim in Gateshead at that time?
Rabbi Shekovitsky, he was a Rav of Gateshead, and Rabbi Landinsky, his father worked together with the Chofetz Chaim on the third Chelek at Hirsch Shabbos of Mishbura. He was a big man, his father, right? And he was only, I remember him, he was a man who suffered in his own health, and he suffered in his son's health. He didn't have an easy life, I must say. You know, we didn't, as youngsters, we don't realize so much. Thinking back, the man, he suffered a lot. Yeah, still went to work to do in yeshiva what he should do.
How many bochrim were there?
But I came with 35 bochrim.
In Gateshead?
It was May 1944. Yes, year 1944. Then by Tammuz, yeah, midsummer, right? The Germans started sending over the flying bombs. They don't have drones, yeah, but that was called flying bombs, which was terrible because you had no idea where it comes from. So in London yeshivas, they fled from London. And overnight, the yeshiva swelled from 35 to over 100. They couldn't cope with it, yeah? But because it was too late, they turned the yeshiva from a little kindergarten, so to say, in a real strong yeshiva. And that is, since then, of course, it grew. But then, of course, the yeshiva where the others came from was from Rabbi Moshe Schneider. You might have heard of him, yeah? He had a son in Bnei Brak, a grandson who had a yeshiva now in Bnei Brak, right? But overnight, the yeshiva was a proper yeshiva, right? And was you hadn't the place to sit for learning. They had to expand, but that created the Gateshead Yeshiva. This transformation.
And how long did you stay in Gateshead?
Only 2 years after the war. It was 44 to 46. 47 to London. And then I stayed in London a few years in Schneider's Yeshiva, and then by then I went to work. Yeah.
And in Schneider's Yeshiva, were you together with Rav Sternbuch?
Yeah. Only Rav Sternbuch, he wasn't part of the yeshiva. he was a lone goer. He was above the standard of the yeshiva. He couldn't keep up with the yeshiva. It was not for him. So he used to learn. He used to go to Mochus Forum, bookseller, in the afternoon, buy a sefer, learn it through. He didn't need it anymore. He knew it by heart. Yeah, it had a fabulous mind. In the morning he came back to the bookseller. How much will you pay me if I send it back to you? So let's say he bought it for £5. So he said, I'll give you £4 or £4.50. You know, it was unused. Yeah, but fabulous memory. Yeah. So
and which other rabbonim?
And the guy went from Yerushalayim, Reb Tobi Weiss, was together.
Tobi Weiss, they were together.
Yeah, I remember well.
You remember?
Yeah, but they were special people when they were young. You know, they already.
You could tell.
I'll tell you, this Reb Tobi Weiss, who was the guy from Yerushalayim, I remember him well from Yeshiva, but he told me on the first day of war, 1939, yeah, which was on the Sunday, 3rd of September, but we were evacuated on the Friday already. He came that Friday near Cambridge in a village to Goyim. He had no parents, nothing, they were all left behind, yeah. So as a boy alone,
he was on the kinder transport.
Yeah, he came. And that Shabbos, the 2nd of September, which is the 17th of Elul, right? He was bar mitzvah. Alone by Goyim, nobody there, right? And he managed, he had such a good chinuch for his thing, he managed later on to come to London, go to Rabbi Schneider, he wants to join the yeshiva. Rabbi Schneider said, I cannot take you, you're 13. If I take you, they're closing yeshiva. It's against law. I can't take above 13. You're school age, yeah? He managed to get in at the end. He persevered, and he certainly shoulders higher than most of the others. Yeah, but he was. I remember how he learned. He was. That generation, they produced quite a lot. Yeah, like Rabbi Steinbuch, his brother, he was later on from Kitzes Koil, and was later on in Bnei Brak, and you know Rabbi Kaufman in Manchester was. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, but it's this whole generation that produced big people, right? And the problems they had in the war to get food enough for the Bochum, the clothes. They didn't have a penny, the refugees. Yeah, you can imagine a yeshiva of 100 Bochum, where probably only 2 or 3 had parents. Yeah. So they needed a new suit, a new jacket, new thing. They had to go to Rosh Yeshiva, who made money for that and bought it for them. Yeah, it's but today you've also got Ben money. Yeah, you go home for 2, 3 weeks, whatever it is. Yeah,
nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. Yeshiva continued like everything. Yeah, that number nobody came in both to him, and he was very sensible. The Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Schneider. He said, who am I going to marry off these boys in another few years? Yeah, when they go a bit older. Which girls are going to get? So he collected orphan girls, refugees, and made a hostel for them where they could live. Yeah, they went to work, yeah, earned a bit of money, and that hostel, of course, provided them an environment which they need, like a home. Yeah, with Shabbos, Yom Tov, everything they had there every day. Right, so he raised girls to fit his boys. Right,
but it's good. It's unbelievable.
But he did. He was a special man. Right, his speciality was he had no respect for somebody who pretended to be big. A young boy in yeshiva who was honest and decent and did what he did was more chashuv to him. Yeah, somebody older he didn't. Yeah, he was very inspiration to everybody. People knew that he had no private life. His private life was in yeshiva, and his Rebbetzin was a cook. He insisted on that. Yeah, so it was a family thing, and it was like a big family we were.
And how come you left the yeshiva? It was.
I was in that Staines yeshiva. Then during the war, I didn't want to go to London, too dangerous, so I went to Gateshead. Yeah, And after the war, I went to the yeshiva. This was all right. I could get him. It was already was the yeshiva for a few years. You see, a different thing. Not like a boy come from school.
And then what happened after you were in the yeshiva?
I went a few years in the yeshiva, and then, first of all, my father was a sick man. He, since 1940, he had trouble with the heart, so far that when they interned all the Jewish refugees from Germany, yeah, they interned them in a prison camp, yeah, so to say, yeah. He got the local doctor to certify that the move was a danger to his life. He managed not to be interned. It was very worrying, yeah. But he didn't. I would say we lived on our savings from 1940, right? And my mother had to take in boarders later on in London, right? And she didn't have an easy life, yeah, right. But the wisdom of my father, people, when he was ill, they came to him for advice, other things.
And how old were you when you met your wife, when you got married?
23, I think. Yeah. But you must remember, I've known her for years. Yeah, I remember when we were lined up for evacuation on that Friday, the 1st of September. That week, we were in school every day, not lessons, playing about it. You know, they had rounders and cricket, you know, we played. And because we had to be ready every minute, we came to school out with our bag, with our things every day, because it was from day to day negotiations with Hitler, whether the war would start or not start. When it failed, then on the Friday they started evacuating, right? So I remember I had a board on the wall, you know, with chalk. I drew lions. And she watched me. She was very proud of me that I can below the door. That was in 1939. Sure. And we only got married in 52. 30 years later.
You've known many years?
Yeah, we knew each other.
And the families knew?
Our parents, our fathers, are first cousins.
First cousins.
Yes, so we're not strangers.
And Rob, were you married in a shul or?
Yeah.
Which shul?
The Das.
The Das?
The older Das was still in the old place before it moved. Yeah. Yeah, we married there. Then I remember the chuppah there. Her father was a dayan in the Kille, right? Of Schönfeld, yeah, a dayan, and Rabbi Schönfeld, and his father became dayan of a Kille in Frankfurt under Rabbiner Hirsch in the 1880s. Yeah, 1880s. Yeah. Now I saw the notice of him being made dayan. Yeah. Today you've got a big colored poster, hurrah, for everything. You know, handwritten in pencil, not in ink, but Rav Hirsch. Yeah. From today, a piece of paper half this size. Yeah. From today onwards, yeah. Mr., not Rabbi, Mr. Gerson Posen is entitled to Paschal Scheiles in his killer as a dayan. That's all. But you call it today. Nothing big. No, people did.
It's very tzanah, very modest, very modest.
People were so modest in those days, yeah. Not like today. Everybody, they didn't know about people, you know. People you stand next to them, you wouldn't even know they were tzaddikim. Nobody showed off. I'll tell you a story. I was left in the Beth Medrash behind one morning in London, yeah, and we had going upstairs was a toilet half landing, you know, nothing. Suddenly, one man, he was left at me, he said, just be quiet and listen a moment. We heard things. He told me, you know what's happening? This toilet is blocked, yeah? After, and the people go home after davening, poked. This man sits behind, he's clearing the toilet, and nobody knows he's doing it. He didn't know we were listening. You know, people, they were honest. Yeah. Did I tell you this story about the insurance? I told you before, isn't it? The father.
Yes, that he could have claimed so much.
The people, these people, that it was expected of people to be honest and decent. Yeah, that's your life. You don't need thanks to be that. You're born for that. Today, if somebody does something good, it's going to be plastered all over. Yeah. In those days, I remember this person. He was called Shlomo Schwab. Yeah, he had a lot of inspiration from him, but he could see the honesty, right? He used to sit in his office, yeah, in the morning, and tell us the feeling. He had his office in his own house, and on the phone, everything was on the phone in those days, yeah, maybe by letter as well, but he was sitting, tell us the feeling, learning, and when the call came in, he took the call, yeah, so and so, and then, yeah, that's how he did his business, yeah, and nothing, people didn't know about it. Yeah, it was a matter of life. Yeah, I remember his wife. Achno's ogen was at the peak when he was coming in. Yeah, it was a different time. That is what we must teach. I always tell the mashkichim in the yeshiva, you must teach the boys midas, yeah, kindness. Right?
It's so true.
I tell you something. I've got a mashgiach from yeshiva here. Yeah, I talk to him sometimes. I tell him, how does the work day run in the yeshiva? They end of the morning for an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. The Rosh Yeshiva or like the Rosh Yeshiva, this is Shia. Yes. Now after the Shia, yeah, immediately it's mincha in the winter. Yeah, 1 o'clock, 1:30. Yeah. Now, one of them wants to look something up, what they mentioned the Shia, so he goes and sees the quotation, he wants to see it inside. That happens, yeah? When he comes after Mincha, then when he comes down to the dining room, all the people have been there 10 minutes earlier, yeah? Where's the soup? Nothing left, yeah? His Chava, who that's together with, should realize his friend is not there, he should put another plate up for him. That is the idea, yeah?
That's their inheritance.
That must be taught today, yeah? That's the most important thing. And a boy will put a portion for his chava away from him, yeah? He'll have a good life with his wife. It's education, yeah? Isn't it?
It's so true.
I'll tell you, I can finish off now. I'll tell you a nice word. I'll tell you 2 nice words. One is nothing to do with today, but which I have heard from a Dayan of a London based in called Moshe Swift. That was a Dayan based in. He said, it says, Ishu Kizazriyu Yodazucha. In the cave Seleit, the Zuch in the cave. The whole Pasha talks about children, the Zuch in the cave. There's one poster that doesn't say, yeah, Umilois Yemei Torah, the Zuch in the cave. It doesn't say the Ben Bas. Why suddenly change? I mean, Torah was Zuch in the cave, the whole Pasha, yeah? Yeah? And why in this poster doesn't say Zuch in the cave? You understand the Kasha? It's something very interesting word. A Zocha and the cave, the whole Bria gets, animals, yeah? And Goyim get it, everybody, yeah? But how does this child who's a Zocha become my Ben? The girl who's in the cave become my Bas. How is it? Education. That means I teach him the Shalshelesh from Sinai, yeah? Yeah? I teach him to follow that. Right? How do I teach him to follow it? If Father Manuel keeps halachas, which the Posen says, Tag and other things, they teach themselves, the children will follow. When you educate the child, yeah? If you tell him to do something, yeah, he won't do it, yeah?
But if you
he'll say, whatever the father does, I've seen it in the Besa Medrash, if the father doubles properly, the child does. If the father talks, the child talks. Yeah? It's the example you said. Yeah? Right? Mm-hmm. They say that one child already took a string and put it like this on his arm. Yeah, string. You know how the children go. And he told this to a big man. Yeah? So the man told him, better you daven in shul. But how does the child know? Yeah? No, what I mean to say is, besides that, the example we set, the education, we educate ourselves, will be followed by our children. Isn't it?
That's so true.
And that's why it's so important, a person must be honest to himself.
And Rob, can I ask, did you know Rav Duna, Dayan Duna?
I know the whole lot. We grew up with them. Yeah.
And Aaron Trow?
Yeah, and you know a lot. We were all together. I was older with them, but they're already a bit the next generation, not quite, but Dein era, I remember since 1939.
And did you live mainly in Stamford Hill?
Yeah, I've lived in better of 2 streets parts, yeah, since 1939.
And Rav, when did you first get involved with the mikvah?
I tell you, the first mikvah I did, I started making a plan, Hanukkah, Tovshin Kav Gimel, which is end of 1962, which is now 60 years ago, right? I made it, and then I got into it, yeah? And of course, what's the most important, I had to write the halachas down. I mean, have you seen this form with the halacha? You've seen them,
yeah.
Big form, yeah? But the thing is, you want to combine the halacha with the architecture. And the trouble is, you get an architect, he doesn't really know what it's all about. He can't, yeah? Even if he's Jewish, he doesn't. You get an architect, he's got no idea of the halacha. Yeah? You could trade a new person. You trade a rabbi architect. That's what it is, you know, but it is like this. Yeah? Combined both together. I've been working ever since. Yeah? But to tell you the thing, 6 years been working it, and 60 years had opposition. Yeah? You wouldn't believe it. There's always people, yeah, who make opposition for any reason whatsoever, right? And in the end, you mustn't get depressed about it. You know, that's the world. You accept it, and you do the best what you can.
And Rav, you've been to, I think, all the continents, nearly all the continents, all over the world.
Yeah. May I show you a letter on the computer?
I'm just going to show you before we do that, Rav. I just want to show you, and I want to thank you because I am, so if I can just have the script to thank you because...
I want to show you a letter.
Rav, 1 minute, just 1 minute. I just want to come in to thank you. So Rav, I was just now in South Africa for my nephew's chasana, and I was for the Ofruf was in Rabbi Smith's shul, and this was given out from the Beis Din, and I was so proud to see my dear patient that I've known for many years, thank you, Baruch Hashem, but here's the picture with you in South Africa, in the Linksfield shul, and with the Dayanim, and whoever I spoke to, and they mentioned that Rav Posen was in Johannesburg. Do I know him? I said, I have the great zchut to know as a patient. But Rav, really, I am so grateful to you, and you should just continue in good health to continue the tremendous, unbelievable avodah that you do for Am Yisrael all over the world. I think, Rav, you've been, I think, to all the continents all over the world. And you?
No, I've not been in Antarctica. I haven't been.
Is that the only continent you haven't been?
I know only continent I've been.
But when
I've been in North America and South America, done mikvahs, Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and in Australia. Not New Zealand. You haven't been, but Australia I've been. Australia has got a complete different problem. Is the international dateline.
It's different.
And there, how do we work out the Jewish dateline? That's the problem for now.
So Rabbi, I just want to mention, and I'll end off, in Frankfurt, when I went to Frankfurt en route to South Africa once, it was on Rosh Chodesh, and I went to the shul that we had a minyan. It was, and I went to the Jewish center. They got a Jewish museum, and then somebody said that there's a building that they built where they found an ancient mikveh in the building in Frankfurt. And I went inside, and they did excavations underneath this building, and there's a mikveh that was from centuries before. And it's amazing that your path to become, and I'm not exaggerating, but the world authority on mikvot, it's just something unbelievable.
Oh, Hashem, I tell you something, I fully realize that the knowledge doesn't come from me, it comes from above. You know yourself.
It's so true. It's so true.
The only thing is, a person must be thankful to Hashem that I've got the zchut to be a shliach of Hashem. Yeah, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah? It's not any wood.
That's true.
It's seichel. Yeah, anybody with seichel will know. Yeah, that a Posen like we are. Yeah, that we can think and develop thoughts is a gift from heaven. Yeah? And the only thing is, what really is, yeah, it could be followed with Yiras Shumayim, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, if not Yiras Shumayim, then the thing is, then of course the thing was completely haywire.
So, Rav, I want to thank you so much,
Yes.
and
I
you
showed
should
you
just
one letter.
be
Yeah, I got
gesund,
last night.
and
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I showed you one letter last night. I'm building a big mikveh in London. Yeah, and I showed you. It was in 1995. Yeah, the end of the war was in May 1945. So in May 1995, they made a remembrance of the 50th anniversary of peace. So we had built a mikveh in Germany, yeah, in what was made 150 years ago in the 1850s, yeah, a Reformed synagogue with a huge dome and etc. But of course our people didn't use it. But it was partly destroyed by the RAF in 1940s. Right, so they left it at this. It was made as a museum piece, and put a big glass wall at the back where it was demolished, so you can see it like a ruin. But from the front, it's all right. And I built a mikveh in the basement for the Oranienburger Straße. And they decided to make the opening of the mikveh at the same time as the anniversary of the 50th year of peace. So we were sitting there in the shul grounds, a big ground at the back, benches, and the top people of the German government were there as well. They were taking speeches. I mean, it was drizzling, we were all sitting in the rain, but still. And he said, he probably was maybe 50, or not even that. He said, look, all of us were not there, or were little children, yeah? But nobody should imagine that he doesn't have to carry the responsibility of what the Nazis did. We all have to feel ashamed of what has happened. Yeah, he said that. Yeah, how far he meant it, I don't know. But in any case, he said it publicly. Yeah, because the Germans, they had pains to not to be identified with the Nazis. But he did a nice mikveh there.
And it's still in use today?
In there, that's one of the mikveh. I did a few others in Berlin. Yeah, another one I did. I did the Brunnenstraße, and there was one Joachimstraße. And the people who know Hamburg, not Hamburg, but Berlin, isn't it? You will know that.
And in Frankfurt, have you?
Frankfurt, I did. I'm now finishing mikveh in Potsdam, which is Berlin, and in Magdeburg, a few kilometers south. Yeah, but the people are having it there.
And you just came back from South Africa recently?
I was before Pesach. Yeah. Yeah, but interesting, we built a beautiful mikveh in Ghana, West Africa.
And is it Kehila?
No, a few people travel there and they make business there, but they still need it. You see, we imagine you only build one for a big community, but if there are a handful of people there, still need a mikveh. I built a mikveh in the Congo, Kinshasa I think it's called, also one. Yeah. Wherever they need it, you go to build a mikveh.
Rob, is it true that if a Kehila should sell a Sefer Torah in order
everything,
to buy a mikveh, to
you
build
cannot
a mikveh?
live without a mikveh, right?
Yeah.
That's the very first
It's the
thing.
basis, it's the...
Yeah. And you haven't got a mikveh, there's no married life. It's an impossibility, such a thing. Right. But, yeah, it's... But Baruch Hashem, and the standard of the mikvahs themselves are much higher than they used to be. But in Aloha, there's a lot of standards you can do, but you call it B'di Ebet L'Chatchila and other B'di Hidor, but we today aim at the top, most of them.
Or you should just continue for many generations, and you should continue in the incredible and very important work that you do, Rav. Thank you, Zin.
Yeah, thank you. Have a look at this. You see? You sit down.
Okay, the layout of the...
Yeah, sit down.
Sure.
It's the manager of the Mikve building society.
Okay.
It's not finished yet. They're nearly finished. I'll show you in a minute the picture, but sit down.
It's amazing. No, Rob, you
Have you read the letter?
I've read it. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
nice letter.
It's amazing.
You read letter.
It's amazing.
And the Mikve which I've built, and just to show you.
This is incredible. And you designed this?
Pan, I designed it. But I'll tell you something. Oi, no, it's going off again. You see? You see? The problem is I've got a mikvah up there, which hangs down. Now I'll show you. Let me come to the other letter. Yeah. No, I must go here. Otherwise I can't show you. Jack. No. Yeah. I show you. My design was this. And maybe it's slightly smaller.
It's a beautiful...
You see this? Now, the mikveh upstairs is hanging down. If I build a mikveh here,
okay.
yeah, if I build a mikveh down there,
Yeah.
the mikveh will go down below floor level, isn't it? So if I build a mikveh on the second floor, or first floor, second floor, the mikveh will come down in this floor. So how can you do it? Yeah. So as you go down here, you go down here, right?
Yeah.
You go down the top as well. So it looks like a hope you go in. That's how you see it. But they did it different, as I showed you before, and I could speak to them about it. I can't change anything. So you should have taken this design. They're all LED lights here. It looks beautiful over there. And they should follow this. Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
It's amazing, man. And you do all the designs. You do...
Yeah, I do that all the time.
It's amazing. Or you should just continue. Sure.
But Casey, what I do is, I do the tiles below the waterline in blue, and above the waterline in another color, so the water looks blue. But they haven't followed that. I'm going to speak to them about it, but...
Can I ask roughly, how many mikvot have you been involved in? Roughly?
Roughly, 1 minute. Let me open this one and let's show you something. Construction of mikvahs, yes? Now, just see the list here. Can you see?
And it's all over the world?
Let's think of 60 years, yeah? But most of the mikvahs are built over the years, but the first 30 years of me building a mikvahs, is lost because we didn't have a computer. It was all hard copy, and the place I was staying, the fire upstairs, and water damage, all the plans. I haven't got them today, right? But I only started the computer in the early 2000s. Yeah, before in the 1990s, it's worked by hard copy. You know, I had big drawing board, and quite different than today.
And Rob, do you ever...
In the middle now, in the middle of construction here, can you see, I'm just in the middle there, that's a mikveh in Bristol, I think, in England. You see?
And Rob, do you ever go back to visit the mikvahs that you helped... Do you go back to look how the mikvahs are doing?
I have to. Yeah.
It must give you a lot of chizuk, a lot of...
Definitely. Look, it's... you see, I look at this here. I don't need recognition, but I don't like people taking over a mikveh and changing it without discussing it first.
Yeah.
But give enough credit. If somebody's made a plan, he had a reason for it. Listen to the reason first. Maybe what I thought of, that he doesn't think of that, yeah? So when discussing it, he sees, well, you're right, yeah? If he tells me, we get a discussion on it. Then he might find a reason why it's better to do that. Okay, we discuss it. But you don't change a plan from an expert. I mean, you know in your trade, yeah? If someone doesn't know you've looked at the teeth, you just say, do like this. To listen first what the reason of the other person is. You may find, because there was a previous history of some root canal, if you do that, you must be fair enough to give somebody else enough credence that he knows what he's talking about. You might be right, and he not. You know, first must examine it.
That's so true.
And that's the trouble we have very often had. Yeah, that.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to you.
Listen, I tell you this because I do hope it might be chizik to other people. Yeah, why? Because a person must be fair. Yes, that whatever seichel is God is a gift from heaven. Yeah. So all it means, I have to thank Hashem that He gave it to me. That's all.
You're the shaliach.
Shaliach. So, but no point boasting. If at the end you do what you should do and you help people, well, it's a different thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But people go boasting because they're clever. Some are musical, some other thing. It's a good chazan. Yeah. Yeah. If I would stand on your kippah van Omet, people run out of shul. Yeah, but he does it, but don't get swelt-headed. It's a gift from heaven.
Yeah, that's true.
And to finish off with a Posen, al tahallel chochom chochmosai, right? That people who got money, people who got wisdom, yeah, it's all a gift from heaven. And I must be thankful that Hashem gave it to me and didn't give it to somebody else.
Well, Rav, thank you so much, and I'm so grateful.
Can I give you a drink or something?
Rav, thank you, but I so appreciate it, Rav.
I'll get you a drink.